The air was thick with the scent of grilled burgers and citronella candles, the kind of summer evening that wraps you in a lazy golden haze. Monica, 38, stood by the patio table, her hands fidgeting with a paper napkin, shredding it into tiny pieces without realizing. Her chestnut hair fell loosely over her shoulders, catching the fading sunlight, but her hazel eyes were distant, clouded with a weariness that had settled in over years of quiet disappointment. Her marriage to Eric, her husband of 12 years, was a hollow shell, polite, functional, but devoid of warmth. He sat across the yard, scrolling through his phone, his broad shoulders hunched, oblivious to the laughter around him. Monica's heart ached, not with anger, but with the slow grinding pain of being unseen. She hadn't always been this way. Once Monica had been the woman who lit up rooms, her laughter infectious, her dreams vivid, a graphic designer with big plans to start her own studio. But life had chipped away at her spark. Losing her job last fall was the final blow, leaving her untethered, drifting through days that blurred into one another. Eric, a steady but distant accountant, buried himself in work, his late nights and vague excuses piling up like unpaid bills. They shared a bed, but not a laugh. Their conversations reduced to logistics bills, groceries, the occasional "How was your day?" that neither cared to answer. Monica felt like a ghost in her own home, her reflection in the mirror, a stranger with tired lines and a forced smile. Then came the summer, and with it her younger sister, Jasmine, bursting into their quiet Connecticut suburb like a firecracker. Jasmine was everything Monica wasn't, any more vibrant, carefree, her blonde curls bouncing as she filled the house with chatter and energy. She brought her son, Caleb, 19, a tall, athletic college freshman with a shy smile and deep green eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Caleb had always been close to Monica, the cool aunt who'd sneak him extra cookies as a kid and listen to his endless questions about the world. But this time, he wasn't the lanky boy she remembered. He walked into the house with a quiet confidence, his presence stirring something in Monica. She couldn't name it a flicker of life. She thought she'd buried Dot. It was Caleb's 19th birthday, and the backyard buzzed with family and neighbors. Balloons bobbed in the breeze, and a playlist of pop hits crackled through a portable speaker. Monica busied herself slicing watermelon, her hands moving mechanically, trying to ignore the hollow ache in her chest. Eric was at the grill flipping burgers with the same detached efficiency he brought to everything. Jasmine was recounting a funny story, her laughter cutting through the chatter while Caleb sat at the table, his gaze drifting to Monica more often than she wanted to admit. She caught his eyes once, twice, and each time her stomach twisted, a mix of unease and something dangerously warm. When it was time to blow out the candles, Caleb leaned over the chocolate cake, his face lit by the soft glow of 19 flickering flames. "Make a wish," Jasmine teased, tossing the napkin at him. Everyone laughed. But Monica's breath caught as Caleb's eyes locked onto hers, steady and unblinking. "I wish for someone who really gets me," he said, his voice low, deliberate. "Someone who knows how to love." The words hung in the air, simple but heavy, like a stone dropped into still water. The table erupted in chuckles. Jasmine called him a hopeless romantic. Eric didn't even look up, but Monica couldn't laugh. Her heart stuttered, her fingers tightening around the knife in her hand. She told herself it was nothing, a teenager's dramatics. But the way Caleb held her gaze, like he was speaking only to her, made her skin prickle with something she didn't dare name. That night, Monica lay in bed next to Eric, the ceiling fan spinning slow circles above her. His steady snores filled the room, but her mind was racing. Caleb's words echoed, each syllable carving a deeper groove in her thoughts. She tried to shake it off, to convince herself she'd imagined the weight behind them. but her chest felt tight, like something was waking up inside her, something reckless, something alive. Down the hall, Caleb was sleeping in the guest room, and the thought of him there, so close, sent a shiver through her she couldn't ignore. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing sleep to come, but all she could see was the way he'd looked at her, like she was more than the shadow she'd become. The days that followed were a slow unraveling. Caleb started lingering around her, his presence a quiet but constant pull. He'd ask her about her day, his voice soft, his questions deliberate, not the casual small talk of a nephew, but the kind of curiosity that made her feel seen. "What books do you love?" he'd ask, leaning against the kitchen counter as she washed dishes. "Do you believe in soulmates?" His words were innocent enough, but his tone wasn't. Monica's pulse quickened each time, her laughter forced as she deflected, but she couldn't deny the warmth spreading through her like sunlight after a long winter. She hated herself for noticing the way his t-shirt clung to his shoulders, the way his laugh lit up his face, the way his hand brushed hers when he passed her a glass. Each moment was a spark, and she was tender, dry, and ready to catch fire. Monica tried to hold on to reason. She was married. She was his aunt. She was twice his age. But reason felt flimsy against the ache of being wanted. Eric barely noticed her anymore. His touches were perfunctory. His compliments non-existent. The last time he'd called her beautiful was years ago, and even then it felt like an afterthought. But Caleb noticed everything. "Your eyes look tired, but they're still so pretty," he'd said one morning, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're not like anyone else, Monica." "You listen?" His words were a lifeline, and she clung to them. Even as guilt gnawed at her edges, she started wearing her hair down, choosing dresses that hugged her curves, dabbing on perfume she hadn't touched in months. Not for Eric. He wouldn't notice if she wore a ball gown or a burlap sack, but for Caleb, whose eyes lit up every time she walked into a room. One night, after Eric had fallen asleep on the couch, the TV droning in the background, Monica found herself on the patio with Caleb. They were watching an old rom-com, the kind they both pretended to care about. He sat closer than he needed to, their shoulders brushing, the air between them charged. When he leaned in to whisper a joke about the movie, his breath warm against her ear, Monica's heart raced. She caught herself staring at his lips just for a second, but it was enough. She didn't pull away, and neither did he. That night, she lay awake, her mind replaying the moment, her body humming with a desire she hadn't felt in years. She told herself it was nothing, that she was just lonely. But the lie felt thin, stretched to breaking. The turning point came a week later, on a night that felt like it belonged in a movie too perfect, too ominous. Jasmine had gone out of town for a work trip, leaving a breezy "Thanks for watching, Caleb," as she kissed his cheek and left. Eric was at a conference, his absence marked by a curt note on the fridge. "Back in 3 days." The house was quiet, just Monica and Caleb, and the air felt heavy with possibility. It had been raining all day, and by evening, the storm had unleashed its full force, thunder rumbling like a warning. They stayed in, Monica pouring herself a glass of wine to calm her nerves, Caleb making popcorn with a boyish grin that made her chest ache. They'd put on a movie they'd seen a dozen times, something safe, but nothing about that night felt safe. Halfway through, the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. Monica's heart leapt, not from fear, but from the sudden intimacy of the moment. "I'll grab some candles," Caleb said, his voice steady, and he returned with 3 small ones, their flickering glow softening the room. He sat closer now, their knees touching, and Monica didn't move away. The rain pounded the windows, a steady rhythm that matched her pulse. Caleb started talking, his voice low, about loneliness, about feeling invisible even in a crowd. "No one really listens anymore," he said, his eyes searching hers. But you do, Monica. You always have. Her throat tightened, her own loneliness mirrored in his words. I feel like a ghost sometimes, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Like, I'm just here. He looked at her, his gaze fierce and tender. You deserve more than that. You always have. The silence that followed was electric, daring her to break it. He leaned in and she didn't stop him. She should have. Every fiber of her knew it, but she didn't. His lips met hers, soft and tentative at first. Then urgent, his hand cradling. Her face pulling her closer. The kiss cracked open something inside her, an ache she'd buried for years. In that moment, she wasn't a wife, an aunt, a woman who should know better. She was alive, wanted, seen. His hands moved to her shoulders, her neck, and she let herself fall into the warmth of his touch, forgetting everything. Her marriage, her sister, the line she was crossing. The storm raged outside, but inside it was just them, a fleeting, forbidden world where nothing else mattered. When it was over, Monica pulled back, her breath ragged, her mind reeling. Caleb looked at her, his eyes soft but certain, like he'd meant every second of it. I've wanted that for so long, he whispered, and her heart shattered, not with regret, not yet, but with the weight of what she'd just done. She sent him to bed, her voice sharp, and he went without protest. Leaving her alone in the candlelit dark, she sat there for hours, the rain a relentless drumbeat. Her thoughts a tangle of guilt and longing. She'd crossed the line, and there was no going back. The morning after was a cruel awakening. Caleb smiled at her over breakfast, his expression unchanged, like the world hadn't tilted. But Monica couldn't meet his eyes, her coffee cup trembling in her hands. The daylight made everything feel stark, wrong, the weight of her actions pressing down like a stone. Yet when he brushed her hand passing the sugar, she didn't pull away, and that scared her more than anything. The guilt was there, sharp and knowing, but so was the pull of him. The memory of his touch, the way he'd made her feel alive. Caleb started texting her, little messages that lit up her phone and her heart. Good morning. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. She'd stare at the screen, her pulse racing, sometimes answering, sometimes deleting the text. Unread. But the guilt was a constant shadow. When Jasmine returned, her cheerful "something feels off in here" hit Monica like a slap. She laughed it off, blaming the weather, but Jasmine's eyes lingered, sensing something Monica couldn't hide. Caleb played it cool, his smile easy, but his glances carried a weight only Monica could feel. Eric came home that night, his tired kiss on her forehead, a reminder of the life she was betraying. Over dinner, he looked at her, his voice small. You've been distant lately. You okay? The question caught her off guard, not because he was suspicious, but because he sounded vulnerable, like he sensed the fracture but couldn't name it. She lied, blaming exhaustion, but the words tasted bitter. She started pulling away, avoiding family dinners, hiding in the kitchen, washing dishes that were already clean. Every glance from Caleb was a reminder of what she'd done. Every conversation, with Jasmine, a knife in her chest. She watched him from across the room, his eyes seeking hers, and sometimes she looked back, the silence between them heavy with unspoken promises. Just when Monica thought she could bury it, Jasmine dropped. A bombshell. Caleb's got a college tour next weekend, she said, stirring her coffee. I can't go. Can you take him? Monica's heart stopped, her mind screaming no, but her mouth said yes. The drive to the campus was torture. Caleb's presence beside her a constant pull. She tried to focus on the road, on the future he was supposed to have, but her thoughts kept drifting to that night, to the feel of his hands dotted the college. She watched him laugh with a girl his age, her hand on his arm, his smile bright and unguarded. Jealousy surged, hot and shameful, followed by disgust at him, at herself, at the mess she'd made. Was this all a game to him? A fleeting thrill? Had she mistaken attention for something deeper, chasing a feeling she'd been starved up for? Too long, back home, Monica spiraled. She thought about confessing, telling Jasmine, telling Eric, but the words wouldn't come. How do you admit something so unthinkable? How do you destroy your family and expect to survive? She replayed every moment with Caleb, his compliments, his touch searching for meaning, for clarity, but found only questions. Did she love him, or did she love the way he made her feel? Was it real, or just a desperate grasp at being wanted? The mirror showed a woman she didn't recognize. Her eyes haunted, her choices etched into every line. Then the world came crashing down. Jasmine found Caleb's journal, its pages filled with his feelings for Monica. Their stolen moments lay bare. Monica didn't know what it said, but she saw the betrayal in Jasmine's eyes, the shock, the disgust. There was no explaining, no undoing it. Eric learned soon after, his silence more definitive than any argument. The family fractured, trust shattered, and Monica was left with nothing but the weight of her choices. Caleb moved on, as young people do, his life stretching out before him, untouched by the wreckage he'd left behind. But Monica couldn't move on. She lived with the guilt, the shame, the loss of the woman she'd been, the one who believed in love and loyalty and herself. Now Monica tells her story, not for forgiveness, but for warning. She sees Caleb in photos sometimes, smiling on Jasmine's social media, radiant and free, while she carries the scars of that summer. Some days she forgets for a moment, but the weight never lifts. She's learned that the deepest wounds are the ones we inflict on ourselves, and she shares this not to absolve herself, but to reach someone standing on the edge. Toes curled, heart racing, tempted to leap. Maybe, just maybe, her story will pull them back. If this story hit you, if it made you feel the ache of choices and consequences, please like, share, and subscribe to Broken Vows, our channel dives into real, raw tales of love, betrayal, and redemption stories that remind us how fragile the heart can be. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced a moment where you knew the right choice but couldn't make it? Your words might help someone more than you know. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss the next tale of a heart undone.